The software engineering market is really bad right now, especially if you are a software engineer based in the US. There are many causes for this. We have seen a lot of layoffs happening in the last 2 years, almost 500,000 engineers laid off in the US only. AI seems to be wanting to take all of our jobs as software engineers. Zuckerberg mentioned that all mid-level engineers will be replaced by AI. So we want to understand what is going on, what are the dangers that we are running here. If you're new to the channel, I am Nicola Madio. I'm a software engineer based in Zurich, Switzerland. I have worked and lived in many countries in Europe. I'm originally from Italy. I've also lived in Spain, Germany, and now Switzerland. I have visited Central Europe and Eastern Europe extensively, and I'm well aware of the market in Europe. I have worked for European and American companies such as Amazon or Oracle, and I'm also aware of how the market is there as well as in Asia. I have a newsletter called European Engineer where I share all my learnings in the software industry in these years, and as well I'm active on LinkedIn where I've been writing there since 1 year, and in only 1 year I've gained over 40,000 followers thanks to the insights that I share. I've recently also started on YouTube, and in today's video we're going to talk about the state of the industry and in particular of the US market for software engineers. What are the issues, how we got here, and how do we get out of here? What is next? What are the opportunities? I hope this will be insightful and useful to you if you're watching. So if you're curious about this topic, stick till the end. In the first part of the video, we'll highlight some of the factors that determine the situation we're in today, which is unpleasant for a lot of us, and then highlight some trends and some opportunities that we can jump on to end up ahead instead of behind in this reshape of the software world that is currently ongoing. I hope you will enjoy it. So let's start from the problems. Let's understand what are the root causes of this situation. I have watched some videos on YouTube, but I haven't found anyone go in such details that we will go into today's video. First of all, we need to understand the boom and bust cycles of big techs. Big tech companies have been rising and growing for several years in the last decade, but then have encountered a plateau. And they aren't growing as much. If you haven't noticed, these companies have stopped shipping anything really groundbreaking since years, and they are mostly maintaining old products and services. This is important because these were the companies that were carrying all the market. They were the ones expanding the most, paying the most, and that they were the ones who were shaping the software engineering market, especially in the US. For example, software in the US especially was a good career because you could just get a bachelor degree and then do some lead code and land a 200K plus job in big tech in California, Seattle, or New York. And maybe in a couple of years, you could get a software engineering level 2 job at Amazon or Google and maybe even land 400K total compensation. So these were the companies that created this dream of being a successful software engineer. Before of this, it wasn't such an appealing career. So we need to understand that if these companies change how they operate and how they hire and how they pay, then the market follows as well. And these companies have plateaued and they aren't hiring as aggressively as they did before. Moreover, if we consider the broader market, also startup and so on, now we have had higher interest rates for some years, which meant that tech companies had less venture and investors' money to hire people. This means that they were more careful about their costs, they were more careful about the revenue numbers, and this meant that they would hire less. Another important factor, the third one we are considering, so the first one is big tech companies plateauing, the second one is interest rates. The third one is availability of talent. Basically, in the last decade, it was hard to find high-paid developers because it's a new industry. There weren't as many graduates or senior experienced people in the field. But today is quite different, especially at the junior level, like with this gold rush of the big tech paychecks. A lot of people went on to study computer science in the US and elsewhere in the world, which means companies have it much easier nowadays to find talent than they did some time ago. So you need to combine this with the slowed growth and also additionally more availability of talent, which means that the handle now switches from employees to employer. This is an employer's market in the software industry right now. Now, if this wasn't bad enough, we also now have AI, which is a great technology. We'll talk later about the opportunities that this technology brings. But we cannot forget that companies need fewer people because of the things we mentioned. They have more people than ever. And now one single engineer can be as productive, honestly, as 5 or 10 engineers. This even creates an additional mismatch in power between employers and employees, because if a company before needed a team to do certain things, now one person with AI might be enough. You shouldn't forget that having a lot of people collaborate with each other introduces a lot of complexity. There is a whole book on this topic called The Mythical Man Month. It's an interesting book if you are in the software industry. And basically it highlights how complexity grows exponentially with the size of the team. Imagine a graph of nodes. If you're a software engineer, then you know that all the combination of nodes grows exponentially, right? So the bigger the team, the more the complexity. Having smaller team can be very productive. Now, with AI, every single member can be very productive as well. You even need fewer people. And that's also part of the reason why companies have been doing layoffs and why they will continue to do layoffs, most honestly. So this is only going to get worse. Another trend that we should mention is offshoring and remote work. These variables are tightly coupled. This is because while offshoring has been a known phenomenon for some decades, companies have been offshoring for decades, right? But with remote work and during COVID, they have seen practically that remote work at scale is very implementable. While they say nowadays that you need to go to the office and so on because it increases collaboration and whatnot, they mostly do it with employees that are already paying a lot of money. And they're like, look, we have seen that people don't work a lot from home during the remote times, during COVID times. So now at least we want you to go to the office because what other alternatives you have? After all, the market is fucked for developers, it's an employer market, so you can do whatever you want. So we will want you to go to the office such that we can control your working time and exercise power over you. Maybe you have less time to interview for other jobs or develop side hustles and so on. That's the main reason to sending back people to the office, because remote work works. And since companies knows this, they prefer to pay someone remotely, maybe in Europe or in Asia, instead of paying someone working from home in San Francisco and pay maybe half the price, maybe 1/3 of the price. Moreover, these employees that they can hire remotely in offshore locations, they will be very hardworking and very talented in many cases, and they will be very happy with their paychecks, because while someone making 200K in Silicon Valley is just a normal dev, someone making 100K in Asia or in Eastern Europe is basically the top 1% of the population in terms of wealth. They are living very well. They can afford property, they can afford maids, cleaning services, and so on. They don't need to cook. They're really living it up, and they will be very committed to their employer because it allows them to have such a good life. This means that companies can find a lot of motivated workers as well. And in the same way as before, I mentioned that a lot of young students went into computer science in the US. This happened as well in these offshore locations because they have seen that IT and software engineering was, from this location, a sure path to wealth and to well-being compared to other, options like being a doctor or studying law, because these other jobs, their pay is tied to the economy of the market they operate on. But software is a more global type work. So the pay is more globalized. They can get paid in dollars, they can get paid in euros, and therefore they can have such a good life. So a lot of people went on to study these topics in school, and now places like Asia and Eastern Europe, they have a lot of talent in these fields because of this reason. So actually employers can find hyper qualified individuals in these locations. It's not anymore something like, yes, you can offshore to India and you're only gonna get shit developers. It's not worth it. This is not true anymore. You can get exceptional developers if you pay them well, which is still much less than what you would pay in the US, and you will get the same people. If you go to Silicon Valley, you will see what are the ethnicity there. Half the people are Asians, Another 25% is maybe from Eastern Europe. So these people are already there. This is anyway what these companies are employing already. So why not hire them where they are, pay them less, avoid that these people separate from their families and relocate to a whole new country, whole new continent, have to deal with visa and all that stuff. It's much more efficient this way. Like software as a field, in my opinion, we'll see a globalization effect very strong. I think software salaries will tend to be globalized. We will reach a global average, more or less. And then developers will just be based in lower cost locations because this just makes sense with a few exceptions. And of course, this will take a while. It will not just happen overnight, but this is clearly the trend, in my opinion. So we have highlighted some problems, right? Big tech companies that were the one that driving the growth of salaries and job opportunities in the past few decades have plateaued their growth. Newer companies need fewer engineers, so there isn't a replacement of big tech companies by another type of companies because they need fewer people thanks to AI. Big tech companies are laying off people because they stop growing and they need fewer people thanks to AI as well. So they are firing people. The market is flooded with unemployed, fired people, laid off people from these big tech companies and other companies, as well as from recent CS grads, which jumped in mass to study this field because it was a gold rush some years ago. So basically fewer jobs, many more people, and a very tight and tense market. Moreover, you have even fewer jobs because companies are doubling down on offshoring in cheaper locations, which means that right now in the US, it is a pretty unsafe career path at this point, being a software engineer, let alone being the gold rush path that it was some years ago. The point of this video is not to scare you off though, or make you feel depressed and hopeless about the future. In fact, I think there is a lot of opportunities nowadays for software engineers if you understand the dynamics of what's happening and you ride the new waves of what's to come. So here are some practical tips. Tip number 1, if your location is not serving you anymore, you can consider moving to another location. For example, if in the US, we've seen that it's less good nowadays for software engineers compared to how it was some years ago. If you are from a high cost place in the US, you can consider two things: going to a lower cost place in the US or leaving the US. The first option can be good because you can still take advantage of the US market, which despite its downturn still is a very strong market for software engineers. It is quite easy at the end of the day to get 6 figures developers jobs in the US compared to elsewhere. And if you manage to get one such jobs in a lower cost location, maybe even lower tax location, maybe in Texas, Austin, or for example, you can get a remote job in the US and place yourself in Utah, Colorado, or some lower cost location, you can still have a better life and less pressure in your career and life in general. Another option is to leave the US entirely because, look, you can go to places where $2,000 a month is more than enough to live a very good life, and they have pretty good lifestyle, more safety, better food, better healthcare than in the US. So there are a lot of places you can go, honestly. If you manage to get a remote job, you can leave the country and choose wherever you want to go. You can go to Asia, you can go to Europe, to Southern Europe, Eastern Europe. These places can offer great lifestyle, contain cost, contain taxes as well, and you can have a much more relaxed life in these locations. As I mentioned before, maybe you don't even need a remote job. Maybe you can get a local job in these countries. Maybe you can get a big tech job in Eastern Europe, in Poland, or in India, for example, in Asia, and you can also have a very good lifestyle. There is more jobs in this location, and someone who is Western and is American can be seen very positively because it can help these offices bridge their gap. You can operate as someone who work with the local team, but is also very able to communicate with the remote American team. So you can be a very useful employees. I've known people that have done this, and they are seeing a lot of success in their career and a very good life as well. Another thing you can do and you should do, which is, not related to what I just mentioned, you can do it either moving location or not moving location, is to learn more about AI. I don't mean studying models or building RAG systems. I mean using AI to speed up your workflow. This is obvious, right? There is this threat, that other engineers are becoming much more productive and companies requiring much fewer engineers. You should definitely be one of these engineers that have become more productive. So this, if you haven't done already, you should really integrate AI into your workflow, use all the tools, invest all the money you need for AI tools and AI courses, and become a 10x developer boosted by AI. Another avenue you can consider is creating content. This is what I have done as well in the last year. I started from zero, literally 1 year ago, and now I have 40,000 followers on LinkedIn, over 10,000 subscribers to my newsletter, and I'm now starting also my YouTube channel. And creating content is a real enabler and luck multiplier, if you want, nowadays, because it makes it so much easier to display your skill set and your talent and your working style and personality out there in the world, broadcasting it. And it will make it much easier to access networking opportunities, employment opportunities, clients, if you want to start a business or a side hustle. So it can really be worthwhile. And I think it will become even more worthwhile in the future. So this is something you can consider. Another thing you can consider is building side hustles. Because look, as I mentioned, for example, with the AI, it's much easier nowadays to build products. And there is a growth in popularity of the indie hacking, micro SaaS movement, where both people who are employed or people who are unemployed are building software thanks to AI. Instead of needing to get funding and build a team, they can themselves build some software and sell it. And this is especially good if you combine it with content, then you can get an audience as well. And then you can easily build a product, not easily, but much more easily than earlier on, that you can then sell to this audience. This can be a software, but it can also be consulting. You can sell your expertise. You can offer coaching, for example. And this can be a worthwhile avenue to have as well. And you can do this while you are unemployed if you want to just grow it slowly, for example, over time, or you can do it full time and speed up the process and take on more risk. But I think it's something worthwhile to consider. Regarding this last thing that I mentioned, side hustles, this you need to evaluate for yourself if it is worthwhile. It can be worthwhile, but it is also time intense. So you need to evaluate if you want to allocate the resources there or somewhere else. Another avenue where you can dedicate resources, which is also, in my opinion, very important, is in having really good career strategy and tactics, if you want. Because before, maybe you could just graduate from college and someone will just give you a job because there are so many software jobs. Not everyone knows how to develop code. It's a superpower. If you can do it, you are special. Nowadays, you're not special at all. So what you need to do is invest much more energy and time into career strategy. You need to understand what skills you have, what are your passions, where can you perform the best, what are good areas in the market. Based on the locations you are interested in, understanding what industries and fields of software engineering are strong there and maybe specializing in those industries and fields. Maybe also you should probably enhance your networking and ideally apply to most of your jobs with a referral while knowing someone in the company. And you should invest in having a top CV, a very well-crafted LinkedIn, and in general, having a great career strategy. If you're curious, you can check maybe my other 2 videos, which are also somewhat useful in this regard. One is how to strategically land high-paying remote jobs, and the other is how to strategically land 6-figure job in Europe. But you can also check my newsletter. I have some articles there. You can search and scroll, and you will find some articles on efficient career strategies as well. You can also hire a coach. Myself, I have a coaching program where I help people with this career strategy part of things, and it can be very effective if you are working with the right people. But you can also do it yourself. I did it myself. I invested a lot into this aspect of my career early on, and it has paid off dividends because it helped me, for example, land 200K jobs as software engineering in Europe early in my career, which is quite unusual for this continent. So I was able to achieve that not by being a 10x developer, but by simply having a solid career strategy and doubling down into it. So this can also work. So to summarize, right now, the market is really bad for software engineers, especially in the US. There are a few issues, big tech companies that are stagnating, higher interest rates, and fewer money in the market. There is a lot of layoffs because companies are not growing as much and need less people. There is AI that makes companies need engineers even less. There is a lot of offshoring going on, and this is reshaping the market in many ways. And there are a few things that you can do to address these issues. One issue is become AI native developer, include it in your workflows. Another thing you can do is create content that can enable your and boost your networking and help you find employers and client. Another thing you can do is approach your location planning strategically, maybe move to another country, maybe consider lower cost and lower tax locations where to be based in as a software engineer. Another thing you can do is have a side hustle. You can build micro SaaS, you can do coaching, you can have a consulting program, you can take on part-time role and freelance role as an engineer for other companies. And the last thing that I mentioned as a way to improve your situation is to have very strong career strategy, double down in that, always apply with a referral, know what you're doing, target specific markets, specific verticals in software engineering, become a strong specialist that knows how to operate in that lane, and this will also help you. So I hope this video was helpful for you. Let me know if you have any questions or anything you want me to address in the future in these videos. I plan to make maybe one video a week. Go check out my other videos if you haven't checked them already. And please, if you liked it, put a like, subscribe to the channel, and I will see you to the next one. Bye.